Yo, what's up guys? Sio here with a kind of surprising video, I guess, if you read the title. Before I get into this, I wanted to just give a quick update to why I haven't been updating the channel lately. Basically, I got a new job, my old laptop crapped out, Breath of the Wild came out, and the NES decided to cancel the rest of the All in Kahuna tournament. So I've kind of been very busy lately. But good news is the NES is back, and it's actually going to be back for a while now because the official Season 2, has officially kicked off as of last Saturday. I had a pretty big stream on my Twitch account. I wasn't even able to advertise it because I've been so busy lately, but shoutouts to everyone that came by because it was a lot of fun. It took like 4.5 hours or something like that, so it was kind of ridiculous, but really fun. It was cool to get everyone on the call at the same time. But as you can guess, I have Nidoking again from my Season 1 team, and that is because I franchise tagged him from last season. And it might be kind of a surprising tag, I guess, seeing as how I also had Victini, Thundurus Therian, Scizor, stuff like that on my team from last year. But we had a rule in the NES this season that if you wanted to franchise tag something that was a lower tier Pokemon, you would have less of a franchise penalty, I guess, than if you franchise tagged a tier 1 or a tier 2. So I decided to go with a tier 3 that I was very comfortable with last season. I feel like I varied it up quite a lot from week to week. I don't really need to go over how crazy this moveset is, because as TK said, most of the people that are watching this video probably already know what Nidoking does for the most part. It's just a really great mixed attacker. I emphasize mixed attacker because I don't know why people don't use its physical moveset more often. Yeah, you take damage from Sheer Force Life Orb if it's something like Aqua Tail or Earthquake, but he has better attack than he does special attack anyway, so yeah. Personally, I love Nidoking. I made it very clear last season how much I loved it. I made it clear last season how much I was going to be using it, and going into Season 2, I really wanted to build a roster focused around it. I've never really seen a roster in League format that, I don't want to say effectively uses Nidoking, because I've seen a lot of coaches that use it really well, but I've just never really seen a team focused around it, and I think it has the potential to be, an amazing wall breaker. So, heading into the draft, I already knew I had Nidoking, so I was able to kind of plan accordingly. Nobody could draft Nidoking. It was going to be my 11th round draft pick. It was going to cost a little bit more points than it would have to draft it normally, but I'm okay with that. So with that in mind, I actually planned on taking a lower tier Mega to kind of offset that point balance, but there was one Mega that I wanted no matter what. I didn't think I was going to be getting it because we actually have a rule in our league where we have a lot of Megas that are currently unreleased, because we're doing this over Showdown, obviously. Obviously broken stuff like Mega Metagross and Mega Lucario and Mega Salamence and stuff like that were broken. But there was a lot of stuff that just isn't in Sun and Moon yet that we wanted to go. One of those being Mega Lopunny. I don't know how it fell to pick 10 or pick 11 or whatever, especially since there weren't actually a lot of newer Pokemon taken early, surprisingly. I was 100% convinced that there was just going to be a run on early Pokemon and maybe I'd get this thing because it got overlooked, but there were a lot of Gen 6 and earlier Pokemon taken and this thing still got overlooked, so whatever. I've always wanted to use Mega Lopunny in League format. It just has so much, I don't even want to say potential because everyone knows what it does, but it's just so hard to stop it. It even has cleric support like Heal Bell and Healing Wish if I really want to use that and catch people off guard, but its physical move pool is incredible. It has various forms of priority. Scrappy makes it so it has no immunities to a normal fighting, which is an amazing typing. It does give me a shared psychic weakness between this and Nidoking, but that's something that's really easy to patch up, so I really just didn't want to worry about it at this point. 135 speed and 136 attack is phenomenal. especially in this format where everything is like really slow right now. So I'm very excited to use Mega Lopunny. I don't want to say it's going to be like an every week bring, because there may be some weeks where I just try to throw off coaches and not bring it. Maybe some weeks where I try to bring a special Lopunny, you never know. It does have 54 special attacks, so probably not, but it's possible. But yeah, after getting Nidoking and Lopunny, I realized I needed something that could at least switch into Psychic type attacks. Ideally it would have been a Dark type here, but I didn't want to reach super early on my Dark type just because I had two things that were weak to Psychic. I looked at the board and realized I pretty much had everything available to me, and there was a lot of great stuff. But what I needed was a reliable switch in, ideally to Psychic attacks, but really just to like anything physical at this point. Ideally, I would like a ground immunity to help out with Nidoking there. If it's a flying type, I can actually get the benefit of potentially switching into Nidoking on a Thunderbolt or something like that. I gotta be careful, it's not weak to ice though. So, I ended up taking Skarmory. I'm not 100% comfortable with Skarmory, if I'm being perfectly honest. I used it during the Monotype off-season a couple of times, but it never really seemed to do what I wanted it to do. But I'm hoping that'll change as I get a little bit more comfortable with Skarmory, because I really do like it as a Pokemon. Steel Flying is fantastic typing. It gets Stealth Rock, Spikes, Defog, Whirlwind. I can use it as a counter, Plead if I want to, although I don't really know why you'd try to attack Skarmory physically anyway. It just does quite a lot for my team. Also gives me Tailwind and Taunt. It's not like the fastest Taunt user, but it is a good Taunt user. It gives a lot of bulk to my team that I didn't have before primarily. It gives me a sturdy user, which gives me a guaranteed switch into stuff as long as hazards are out of the way. It gives me a very reliable hazard remover, as well as a hazard setter, which is something that I really wanted heading into this draft. And 80 attack isn't great by any means, but it is good enough that if I wanted to run this thing offensively some weeks, I could if I wanted to. There already are a couple of weeks where I might, farther down the line, where I might have to work in a physical Skarmory, so I do want coaches to plan for that, so I'm just going to throw it out there now. But like I said, I still need a Psychic type switch in, ideally. Ideally, again, it's a Dark type, and ideally, again, it's something that can levitate. I was looking really hard at Mandibuzz here, if you couldn't guess based on that. But I didn't really want another, like, super passive flying type. I wanted something that, even if it's not, like, offensive, it's defensive of enough of a threat on both sides that it's very difficult to take down. I realized that I could actually stand to benefit from a pure Psychic type on the team, just both to deal with the Psychic type attacks that I'm worried about, give me Psychic offense that I didn't have before potentially, not going with the most offensive Pokemon here, but because I went Nidoking, Lopunny, 1 and 2 basically, I decided to just go bulk 3 and 4. So I picked up Skarmory last round and decided to just have the league hate me and pick up Cresselia this round. I thought it matched very well with Nidoking and Lopunny. It gives me another switch in like I was talking about. If you've ever faced Cresselia, you know that it's an absolute fucking nightmare to take down. And that's kind of what I wanted, is something to kind of wear down opponents. Toxic Stall if I need to. I have reliable recovery. I actually didn't know that Lunar Dance healed PP too, that's interesting. But I have reliable recovery, screens on both sides, Magic Coat, I have Calm Mind if I want to set up, I have Thunder Wave, I have Trick, I have Gravity if I really want to run a Gravity set, which you never know, honestly. With a Nidoking that could be pretty cool. But it just does a lot for my team. I know I'm saying that kind of generally. I also do get Trick Room if I want it. I know I'm saying that somewhat generally here by just saying it does a lot for my team over and over again. But I really just wanted to pick Pokemon that synergized well together. And while my roster looks pretty loaded so far, it does kind of have a couple of, like, interesting weaknesses. Like, outside of Lopunny, I'm pretty slow. That's not going to change with this next pick, spoilers, but outside of Lopunny, I'm pretty slow, and at this point, Nidoking and Lopunny are kind of my only form of offense. I was looking at this next pick to be either a wall with more offense in Milotic, or a wall that, not even really a wall, but like a starter that I feel like I used pretty well in the Alolan Kahuna tournament in Decidueye. I actually planned on taking Decidueye pretty early in this draft, but unfortunately other people knew that and took it in front of me. If you watch the live stream, you can hear me kind of freak out about that. But I feel like I pivoted pretty well into taking Dhelmise. I have 2 Ghost weaknesses now, but also a Mega Lopunny to switch into Ghost type attacks if I want to. I've done it in practice already, and it feels pretty satisfying to be able to kind of counter a Ghost type with a fighting type that can hit it back. But the main reason I wanted Dhelmise was for Rapid Spin, first of all. I wanted something that has pretty even stats on everything across speed, or except for speed, I guess. But I actually don't mind this thing being slow because Steelworker gives it Ghost, Grass, and Steel stab without actually having to be a Steel type. And it also has a trapping move and Anchor Shot, which I think is going to be pretty helpful. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it quite as effectively as I did with Spirit Shackle, but here's to hoping, I guess. It has a really good physical move pool. It's a really good Assault Vest user. I've used it a couple of times. It gets Switcheroo, Swords Dance. Even gets Aerial Ace, which is kind of cool. But again, it's another Pokemon that I feel is going to be pretty valuable for the team. Ghost types are really important in League format, and I've seen Dhelmise used pretty well. It was ranked a little low in my opinion because it was a tier 3 in our board, and I've seen it as high as a tier 2 in pretty much every other tiered league so far. So I wanted to take a shot at this and see if I can maybe get it moved up a little bit. Just overall, I really like 131 attack and 100 defense. Like I said, it's a really good Assault Vest user, and I'm going to try to avoid using that every single week because I know it's such a good set, but yeah. So like I was saying, I needed more speed on this team. I ideally wanted something besides Skarmory to help out. Like, Skarmory gets Tailwind, but I don't want to have to rely on a Tailwind, like, boost or whatever every week. I also didn't have an Electric type, which is kind of bothering me at this point. There aren't really a whole lot of, like, great Electric types yet at this point. I could take Zapdos, but it would like severely limit what I'm able to do with the rest of my draft. And believe me, I'm eyeing Zapdos super hard here because it fits very, very well. But I instead decided to dip down into tier 3 and pick up a Pokemon that, again, I'm not 100% comfortable with, but it fits this team pretty well, in my opinion. It doesn't really have any shared weaknesses besides Fire with anything before it, I guess. But it's fast enough at 108 speed to be able to Volt Switch out of there. It gives me Sticky Webs, which is the main reason why I wanted it, because I feel like the rest of my team could benefit quite a lot from Sticky Webs. Compound Eyes is really nice because it allows me to just spam Thunder if I want to. I think it's like 92% accurate after the Compound Eyes boost, if I remember right. And while this thing doesn't hit like super hard with 77 attack and 97 special attack, it can be a pretty reliable pivot. I'll have to use Dhelmise effectively to try to keep rocks off my side of the field, or Skarmory, I guess. But I really like Galvantula's coverage. Giving it Energy Ball and Giga Drain allows it to deal with a lot of ground types that it wouldn't really be able to do. It actually has a surprisingly decent like physical move pool, so if I ever did try to run a Swords Dance Pass set, I feel like it could work pretty effectively. I don't want to give away too many secrets, I guess, because I know pretty much every other coach should be watching this. But I'm pretty excited for Galvantula. I'm going to try my best to not run Sticky Webs on it every single week, but it's going to be very tempting with my team, if I'm being perfectly honest. Alright, so next up, I realized at this point, because I skipped out, or because I missed out on my Milotic, and a couple other waters had been taken since then, that I really needed to get my bulky water. While I have a lot of like interesting Pokemon in Nidoking, Lopunny, Skarm, Cresselia, Dhelmise, and Galvantula at this point. My cores are not there yet, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I was running the stream, so I didn't notice this until like round 7, but I had a Steel type from my Fairy Dragon Steel core, and a Grass type from my Fire Water Grass core. So I had to change that whether I really wanted to or not. So I decided to dip really low for my water, surprisingly. There wasn't really anything in the higher tiers that I was looking forward to. But this is a water type that I've seen used pretty surprisingly effectively in League format. It's always kind of slept on as just like a bulky water, but it's one that does the job well, in my opinion, in Lanturn. 125 HP allows the otherwise mediocre stats across the board to be very, 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 like, boosted, in my opinion. Switching between Volt Absorb and Water Absorb is fantastic. I had both last season in Thundurus T and Vaporeon, but I'm looking forward to being able to bring it both on the same Pokemon. This thing is very fat, and you would be kind of surprised until you start running calcs on it how little stuff actually does. It has a really nice special, or not like really nice, but it has a pretty usable special move pool. Volt Switch is nice. It gets Soak, so I can Toxic Steel types if I want to. It's Ion Deluge, which I don't think actually helps me at all, but could potentially be cool if I somehow outspeed and have Volt Absorb and can get health back from a normal type attack. There's just a lot of interesting things that Lanturn can do. Tone used it pretty well last season, so I wanted to get my hands on it this season and see what I could do. But next up, I realized that I had waited way too long on my Dark type. I had settled in from pretty much the get-go of the draft on Alolan Persian. I really liked its speed, I really liked its versatility, I really liked how fat it actually was with Fur Coat, and I really liked being able to mix it up and go offensive with Technician, which, if you watch my last season, you'll know is one of my favorite abilities, because it just makes every move awesome. Like, the fact that you can competitively use Bite on Persian is pretty fantastic. But unfortunately, Super Nerd had to be a dick and take it right in front of me. Literally one pick in front of where I was planning on taking it, so thanks, buddy. I'm not too mad about it because it let me take another cool Dark type, but I am a little upset that I was planning so heavily for it and it got sniped. It happens, so I had a backup, but it wasn't my ideal backup. But it is a Pokemon that I think actually fits onto this team, in my opinion, better than Persian would have. It has a unique ability, it has really nice speed, and it has really nice mixed offenses, which is pretty helpful for me. I picked up Zoroark. Now, in my very limited test, like, running of Zoroark, apparently Zoroark hates Pokemon Showdown and just, like, completely fucks it up all over the place. But I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can effectively use Illusion to kind of throw off a couple of coaches. I think it's a really... I'm gonna say this is untapped potential because I've only seen, like, a couple of people actually use Zoroark, like, as effectively as it could be. But I really wanted a Pokemon that could just be very annoying during the battle and cause my opponent to misplay a little bit based on predictions just because I have it. I was also looking at Dugtrio here, but I didn't really want another ground type at this point because it just didn't fit with my roster build. I really needed a Dark type, obviously. And I really wanted something that was fast and could hit hard from both sides. If I give this thing a Life Orb, if I want to, just make it fully offensive, it can be a really good mixed attacker. It has priority in Sucker Punch. It has an amazing special move pool, actually. It also gives me Knockoff, which is nice. Memento is actually really nice, too. If I want to run Z Memento, I can basically use it as a Healing Wish that also lowers my opponent's attack and special attack by 2. I've definitely planned for that in a couple of upcoming weeks. It gives me a very, very interesting Pursuit Trapper, actually, because I can just have it disguised as anything and potentially Pursuit Trap. I'm just really looking forward to seeing if I can use this, because I'm not 100% confident in my ability to, but I think it could be a pretty cool Pokemon. It even gives me Copycat and Counter if I want to, which are pretty cool moves. But yeah, I think there's some decent potential in Zoroark. I know it's super frail, but I kind of have enough bulk on my team that I feel like I can support it and just U-turn around. I'm just kind of curious to see how it goes. Why did my music stop? Oh, because it's just a quiet part of the song. Okay. So next up, I have all of my 3 free Pokemon left, and with my point total that I had at this point, I'm not going to bother you guys with the numbers, but basically I could either take a tier 1, tier 3, or sorry, I could take a tier 1, tier 4, tier 5 to fill out my roster. I could take a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 to fill out my roster, or I could take a 2, 4, 5 and just have extra points if I wanted to move around in free agency or whatever. I was going to take a tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 until I realized that tier 1 was absolutely loaded at this point in the draft. Like, there was stuff like Infernape still on the board, which is fucking ridiculous to me. Sylveon was still on the board. What other stuff was on there? Landorus T Sandforce got undrafted, I think, which is mind-boggling to me. We had it banned, and then nobody even wanted it this season. So I guess that was a reason to unban it. I can't even remember at this point, but I just remember looking through the draft board and being like, I have to take something from tier 1, even if it's going to kind of limit what I want to do for the rest of the draft. There's just too much good stuff here. And if you can kind of guess based on how I was listing things, I ended up going for Sylveon. Sylveon got a little bit of a nerf this generation, which I think is why it fell down draft boards. Pixelate only does 1.2 times power instead of 1.3 times power now. But Pixelate boosted Hyper Voice is still gonna hurt. Like, I feel like people saw that 0.1 reduction in damage and were like, oh no, never Sylveon. But it's still a fantastic cleric. It's an awesome Wish Passer, which is something I didn't have on my team. I did have it last year, and I feel like I was able to use it pretty well. It gives me a Calm Mind Baton Pass user, which is pretty cool because I have a lot of special threats on my team. And honestly, I have enough bulk on my team that I can actually use Sylveon offensively this season, which is something that I was really excited for. I feel like most of the time when people draft Sylveon, they draft it early and then it just gets stuck in a cleric role like all year. I feel like I have the bulk between Skarmory, Cresselia, Lanturn, and stuff like that I can actually afford to run it offensively. And 110 special attack is not something to just ignore. Even if I run this thing bulky and just slap Hyper Voice on it, it's going to do a ton of damage. But if I run this thing offensively with like Choice Specs or something, I think it can do, I mean obviously it can do more, but I think it could do more than coaches are expecting from it this year. I was pretty surprised to see Sylveon this far down the draft board, but unfortunately because I took a tier 1, I was limiting myself to the rest of the draft for a tier 4 or a tier 5. And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I still needed to fill out cores, and I needed a dragon type and a fire type. So in between rounds here on the draft stream, I'm like not talking at all, just trying to write down any dragon type and any fire type that's left. Basically, if I wanted to get a tier 5 dragon, my only reliable choice was Turtonator, and while it would have actually filled both of the roles that I wanted it to, it would have also forced me to bring it far more than I really wanted to. We used Turtonator in the test season, and it just did not do anything any week. So it kind of scared me away from it. So I instead opted to get a tier 4 dragon. There wasn't a ton available, but luckily Druddigon was still there. I actually think that Druddigon fits this team better than most other dragons would have anyway. When I was initially building the team builds and stuff, I really kind of wanted Haxorus. If you listen to the draft stream when Haxorus gets drafted, I'm a little upset. But I think Druddigon works better in my opinion because it's a little bit more mixed. It's kind of weak for a dragon, to be honest, but Rough Skin Rocky Helmet is very nice. Sheer Force Life Orb is really nice, and even just a Mold Breaker Stealth Rock Scalaire set or something is really nice. So I think long run, I actually probably got the better dragon for my team. I can use this thing defensively if I want it to, because it has the bulk to support it. I can use it offensively, and by the way, Glare having 100% accuracy is awesome, because I've already missed enough Thunder Waves this generation to not want to run it every week like I did last season. It also has priority and Sucker Punch, which is nice. It's not the most reliable priority, but it is there if I want it. I was just actually pretty surprised to see Druddigon still on the board at this point, because I feel like it was pretty highly valued last season and then just got kind of ignored this year. So finally, with my last pick in the draft, I knew I needed a tier 5 fire type. Anybody who was like looking at my board at this point probably would have also noticed that I needed a tier 5 fire type. Everyone in the draft just kept listing off all of the tier 5 fire types available, which is kind of annoying, but it's okay because I managed to get the one that I wanted. I was actually really torn between the Pokemon that I drafted and Simisear. I thought Simisear's speed would have been pretty nice, a nice baton pass user, and it wouldn't have had to bring it every week, but I feel like if I would have brought it, it would have been kind of surprising and hopefully gotten some stuff. But I realized that I would have preferred to take something that actually supports the rest of the team a little bit better. Like, Simisage is okay at getting like a kill and then dying, but I didn't really want that. I kind of wanted something that was a little bit more supportive. So I ended up taking Combusken, which might be kind of surprising, because Blaziken with Speed Boost is banned, but I asked, and Combusken with Speed Boost is not banned. So I can run an Eviolite Speed Boost Baton Pass user if I want to. It actually has decent enough attack and special attack that if I wanted to run it as like a Swords Dance Life Orb, like kind of sweeper on its own, I could probably do that. 55 speed is not the best to kind of initially start off at, I guess. But I can make it work with my team, I think. Because it's a tier 5, it was the last pick of the draft, I'm not really tied down to bringing it very often, especially since it does share the fighting type with Mega Lopunny, who is obviously a much better fighting type. But I don't want coaches to sleep on Combusken. It has the versatility of a starter. It has I believe, everything that Blaziken gets. I don't think he gets Blaze Kick, but I think he gets everything else. But that's okay, because Blaze Kick's alright, but not super helpful anyway. Especially since it gets Fire Punch, which is only like a little bit weaker. But I'm actually pretty excited to see Combusken. I was actually surprised to see it on the board still, just because I talked about it with a few people pre-draft, and it seemed like someone was interested. But I guess it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. But I'm really excited to have two different forms of speed control on this team in Sticky Webs and Speed Boost. I feel like it'll fit pretty well with my bulky but kind of slower team overall. I do actually have pretty decent speed tiers since Mega Lopunny hits 135, and I think Druddigon and Lanturn slower. I forget. I think Druddigon's slower. Okay. So I have Druddigon at 48 and something else at 40. I think it's Dhelmise. Yeah, so I have Dhelmise at 40, and then Druddigon at 48, and then Mega Lopunny at 135, and Galvantula at 108. So I feel like I have pretty decent speed diversity, especially for a team with Sticky Webs and Speed Boost available to me. And I feel like I have a decent enough team that I don't actually need to rely on both in any given week. I just stuck Nidoking on here because he was technically my 11th round pick and my 0th round pick. So since we had 11 Pokemon, I just wanted to stick them on the bookends of this draft. I'm pretty excited for my season coming ahead. Last season I wasn't, or season 1 I guess, it was my first league season ever, so I drafted stuff that I knew was okay but had never used before. And it ended up coming together very well. I ended up placing 3rd, and I feel like I could have actually done better, but I just didn't really plan well enough the last week. But this draft to me feels very solid. There's not a lot of immediate shared weaknesses, a lot of immediate all of my stats are skewed to X stat instead of Y stat, so you can just take advantage of the fact that I'm specially weak or something. I have good bulk on both sides, which is something I did not have last year. I have good hazard removal and both defog and rapid spin, which is something that I had in my draft last year but ended up removing, which was kind of a mistake in my opinion. I have Fire, Water, Grass core and a Fairy Dragon Steel core, even if it's not the most conventional ones. I have it, which is nice. And I have very, very nice wall breakers on both special and physical, which is going to be pretty helpful for me. So overall, I have pretty high expectations for myself this season. I was just going to be happy in Season 1 if I made the playoffs, but I kind of have my eyes on winning it all this season. I've been pretty highly ranked in both of the off-season tournaments, and then we haven't had, like, the actual playoffs to see who would have won. So I'm a little annoyed, if I'm being perfectly honest. It's a good annoyance, but it's an annoyance nonetheless. But yeah, please let me know what you think of my draft. Let me know what you think I could have done differently. Let me know if there's any interesting sets that you want to see. And let me know if you ever want to like practice or anything, because I feel like people are kind of scared to offer practice and stuff when they see it, like league videos and stuff, but I love getting outside opinions and I love seeing what other people come up with. So yeah, please just hit me up if you ever want to do that. But I am a little annoyed that it took me a half an hour into the video to talk about this, but for those of you that made it this far, congratulations, because you get to see another hidden announcement, I guess. Effective as of this season, I am retiring the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is a little surprising, I guess, but I just didn't really want to be associated with a team, quite frankly, that had other content creators underneath the same team on YouTube. I didn't realize until after I picked the Cavaliers initially that NumNexus used it in Season 3 of the GPA, and there's like 4 or 5 other people on YouTube that just have it in their other leagues. So I instead decided to just go ahead and rebrand entirely. Effective as of Season 2, I will be the Oakland Mudbraiders. I've been a lifelong Oakland Raiders fan, so I knew I had to do something with the Raiders. Here's my logo that I drew up, by the way. I hope it's actually on the camera, but whatever. So I'm going to be the Mudbraiders because I, first of all, loved Mudbray and Mudsdale last season. It was actually probably one of my favorite Gen 7 Pokemon, if I'm being honest. I feel like it's a pretty unique name, and I feel like it's a unique brand for myself to build around, I guess. So I'm just going to go for it. So when you see me uploading stuff and you're wondering who the hell the Mudbraiders are, hit me. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and leave now. This video has gone on long enough. I'm not surprised it was a half hour, but I need to let it process so I can actually upload it in time. So have a good one, guys. I will see you this week with my Week 1 battle versus the New York Aqua Jets. Kind of interesting that my last video and the next video on my channel are both going to be against the same coach. So stay tuned for that, because he has a pretty scary team. Yeah, see you guys.